the prerequisite for being a guest host is you have to be taller than me.
Ah, that's true.
Yeah, and that's everybody.
Just about.
Oh.
Yeah. Commas.
Commas.
The other rule that I think we can all follow pretty much universally. Again, the Oxford comma, you can follow that universally. I just recommend you don't. But here's a rule that you really should follow universally. In fact, you must. And it requires you to understand the difference between independent and subordinate
I knew
clauses.
you were going to say it.
Now, don't be intimidated by these words.
No. Don't be scared.
It's simple. An independent clause is another word for sentence.
It's a sentence.
It's a sentence.
It's a complete sentence all on its own. It don't need no man.
Yeah.
Subject, verb, object. That's it.
If you've got a subject and a verb,
Yep.
you've got a sentence.
Brad ate. That is actually an independent clause.
It is.
Brad ate.
Brad ate the broccoli.
There you go.
Also,
independent clause. So
independent
now
clause.
we know what he ate.
Perfect.
Brad ate the disgusting broccoli. Now we know that the broccoli is disgusting, but all of it comes down to the same thing of Brad ate. The subject and the verb is the sentence.
That's right.
Everything else is modification.
Correct.
Yes. So what Brad is about to tell you, go Brad!
So if a sentence is an independent clause, then a subordinate or dependent clause is and not a sentence.
True.
So anytime you have an independent clause, a sentence, joined together with a not sentence,
Down the stairs.
you don't need a comma. If you have two independent clauses, two sentences, joined together by a conjunction, presumably, you need a comma.
Comma.
It actually is that simple. The rule is simple. Two independent clauses require a comma before the conjunction that
What's a
coordinates them.
conjunction, Brad?
And or but are the three most famous
They
conjunctions.
really are. Conjunction, junction, what's your function? Like I always tell the
Yeah.
children. A conjunction conjoins.
Yes.
Adds things together. This and that. This but that. This or that.
You can get with this, or you can get with that. I think you get with this, but this is where it's at.
Those are conjunctions.
Brad ate the broccoli and he enjoyed it immensely.
Yes. But if you notice, with that conjunction, on either side are independent clauses. Two sentences that could be sentences all by themselves without that conjunction. So we need that comma.
Brad enjoyed the broccoli.
Comma. And
He enjoyed it immensely.
there you go.
Because he enjoyed it immensely is a perfectly good sentence on
All
its
by
own.
itself.
It's,
All by
you don't
itself.
know what it is.
Right.
You don't know who he is.
But that
That's
doesn't
not
matter.
important.
Nope.
Grammatically speaking, it's got a subject, it's got a verb, you got a sentence.
What?
So that's it. Commas join,
Yep.
or come right before the conjunction,
True.
joining two independent clauses. Now, if we were to change that sentence and
Yes.
say, Brad ate the broccoli and ran to the supermarket. Brad ate the broccoli, still a perfectly good sentence.
Yes.
Ran to the supermarket is
no
missing
sub-
a subject.
We've got no subject.
Ran
Who
to...
ran? We
You
don't know.
don't know.
So we gotta conjoin it to Brad.
But you don't need a comma because, see,
No.
you don't have two independent things. That secondary clause, that second clause is called a dependent or subordinate clause.
Woo!
No comma.
Don't get scared. Don't get scared.
It's
Everything's
that
okay.
simple. I know the language can be a bit frightening,
okay.
these language of
Don't be
subordinate. It's just two sentences,
Yep.
you need a comma. Of independent and a dependent, you don't need a comma.
No, you
It
don't.
is that simple.
Now, there is always, if we hearken back to our last episode, the dangling modifier issue. What if we have an opening modification before an independent clause? Don't be scared. I know I said a lot of words right there, but here's the thing. Suppose you have Brad ate the broccoli. What if we have, before that, an opening modification? What would that be?
During the podcast,
Comma.
Brad ate the broccoli.
There you go. You have to have a comma after that because who's eating the broccoli? Brad's eating the broccoli during the podcast. You could say Brad ate the broccoli during the podcast and you'd be fine without any kind of comma. But if you put that at the beginning, if you make it an opening modification during the broadcast, comma, Brad ate the broccoli.
That's right.
You've got to have that.
That's exactly right.
Okay?
It's that simple.
It really is that simple. It really is that simple. Don't get scared. I know people get scared of grammar. Don't be scared of grammar.
particularly scared.
Grammar's your friend.
Yeah.
And why is grammar important? Brad!
Grammar is important because without it, we are unable to communicate clearly and effectively with one another, and that leads to conflict, and that leads to argument, and that leads to war, and the planet explodes.
And if Heather were here, she'd go,
Grammar is the key to world peace. I'm on her team. I'm on Team Vicky. Sorry, Heather.
The hedgehog of fury.
It's true. It's true.
We are now to that magical point of wrap up. I don't know. The hedgehog just wanted to say something. So here we are. What we've learned today is that commas are important because they lend clarity to your writing. And they also, what else do they do?
Well, they affect the rhythm of your prose. And so whether or not you subscribe to the Oxford comma or not, I think paying attention to your punctuation, thinking of it in musical terms, might help you appreciate why it's important, because you're giving clues to your reader about how your language should sound to them. And that's a very important part of language, the musicality of the sound of language.
Yeah. If you were hearing it out loud, what would it sound like?
Yeah.
And like you said, a comma often indicates a pause.
Yes.
So yeah, use your commas judiciously. Did I just say judiciously? Well read. You've done it.
Again, people know what you meant, which is part of the problem with our current culture.
True.
In that you get close enough and people understand, which is lovely, but long term, we're talking about long term for posterity, you've got to have an agreed upon standard.
Yeah, 20 years from now, we don't want someone saying judiciously.
No, and if you ever go back and read some of the greatest writing in Western or modern Western civilization, you go back to like the 16th century, 15th century, there wasn't standardized spelling, for instance. There wasn't standardized punctuation.
True.
It's a nightmare. I mean, it's a real nightmare to read some of this stuff. And so...
Wasn't it Ben Franklin who wanted to change all of the spelling to phonetic?
Yes. Again, it's sort of up there with the metric...
What are you doing?
With the metric system of like good ideas in theory, however, we're not going to fall for it.
No.
But it is if you ever doubt the importance of spelling things correctly or learning the rules of punctuation, even if you choose to break them, and even if in some cases there are options, knowing the rules, knowing the different schools of thought will help you communicate about communicating much more effectively. And you won't be at the mercy of people's sloppy, careless, styleless ways of being in the world.
Wow!
Don't be one of them.
How do you
Take
feel?
control. Have some agency over your life, and taking some agency over your language is one of the best ways you can do that. It's one of the, I wouldn't say easiest, but it's something that's usually in your power.
True that, Trudeau.
I think that generation knew it was writing for posterity, and it was kind of a thing. Like Goethe and these other dudes, they wrote these things that were sort of looked very personal, but
once
they're actually
again
quite
a name
stylized.
that you're not going to like the way it's spelled.
You're not going to like the way Goethe is spelled.
Goethe.
It's a mess.
Yeah.
Blame the Germans. If there's a heaven, and if it's full of people who lived before us, and if I were to bump into Emerson, I wouldn't want him to kick me in the balls